Good morning, folks. Good morning. It's Thursday. Was it 5th or 6th? Can't keep up with the days. I'm too busy doing stuff and getting into shop this morning so I can work on finishing up this pole mount. And I got a little bit more welding to do and then paint it and whatnot. But I gotta wait. I gotta wait till I got full sun on my solar panel and my system's powered up so I can do the welding I need to do. So while I am waiting for all of that, let me get you set right here. I figured you folks and I could have a little chitty chat. Oh my goodness, let's sit down in this mess. So what I normally do in the morning is browse around all my sources of information and kind of get a quick peek while I'm eating breakfast and having my coffee, and check in on different people that I have put in my list of good sources of information. And this morning I watched a really, really wonderful interview between Greg Hunter and Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. And due to the nature of the differences of understanding and opinions and information that's being shared, I kind of feel necessary. I told you I didn't want to do these kind of videos, but kind of felt necessary to. It feels necessary to do this. It really feels necessary, simply because it is the peaceful way to. And I'm going to borrow a new term that was created, and I really kind of like it. It's kind of neat. New term, wootage. Sabotage in Wooland, and I'm going to do it because that's the power of information and the power of knowledge. So all of my wonderful subscribers will tell you I have said it 1,000 times: listen to all but follow none. And the reason being is this: when it comes to developing opinions based on information that we've gotten, we all tend to tweak our opinions a little one way or a little another way based on information that we individually deem to be factual. Now, big issue here is we don't all get the same information. We don't. Some of us gets information in one way, and some get information in another way. And the reason I say listen to all and follow none is because none of us are perfect. Some of us are striving to be as complete and accurate as possible, but it's not easy to do. And the reason none of us can ever be perfect is because none of us can ever get all the information. We can't. It's overwhelming. We can't, we don't have enough time in the day, even if we started our lives out at very birth, trying to jam-pack information in our heads like you've seen them do in the Matrix movie, where they get a download, and it's like how to learn how to fly a Huey helicopter in 3 seconds, that kind of thing. Even if we were dumping information into our heads like that, it still wouldn't be possible to know it all. We just can't. So we do the best we can. And for the folks that I like to watch, even though I've had major disagreements with each and every one of them, I continue to watch them because I know they're doing the best they can. And I try to follow people who I see who have good hearts, who really, really love life, love themselves, and want to do good by others to benefit the rest of the world. So in the criticism that I give today, it is done out of full love in hopes that not just the folks who I'm talking about maybe hear this, but maybe all of those who hear this can reevaluate their own belief systems in such a way that they can grow. Now, I was uncertain about whether I even wanted to do this video at all or not, simply because the last time I did this, it didn't turn out too well for me. My channel, in my working back and thinking through the events and how it happened, my channel got taken down in a very ugly way very shortly after I did this video. And I did a video, y'all remember old Ron Boccaccio. He's a good guy, giving us good information from his perspective. And he was very concerned about some data at that time that wasn't aligning with the narrative. So we're going to talk about the narrative as it was referred to in the Paul Craig Roberts interview. But the narrative that was being given to us in multiple, very calculated ways failed rather rapidly in my vision of the events that were unfolding about a year and a half ago. And about a little over a year and a half ago, in April of last year, when the events that were taking place in the Asian country across the Pacific Ocean that were being described as having incredible impacts on large numbers of other people, and that we were getting these information that this thing that was occurring, specifically the COVID was making a huge impact. We didn't have any way to verify it or check it. So when we first get information like that, we want to believe it, or we want to know it. And even Dr. Paul Craig Roberts made the statement, is that and I've said this before in my videos as well too, that when we as Americans or human beings have been trained to believe the first thing we hear and tend to want to hold on to that as the factual evidence. Well, we all did discussions on this, and we were all discussing the ramifications of said events that were occurring and what they meant. At that point in time, regardless of the feathered out facts that we were getting, we hadn't gotten many at that time. I had already known at that point in time that this was the trigger being pulled, that the powers that want to be were initiating their big events. And that's when I told everybody back in late January, early February, that we wanted to, this was the GTFO time, and that we needed to really start positioning ourselves. So I did a video, and I'm still not sure how I want it. I'm a little nervous about putting this up, because the last time I did this, it wasn't happy for me, and for a lot of work that I put up on my channel got just wiped out. But I'm going to do this, and I'm trying to do it in a different way so that hopefully it doesn't happen again. But I made we did, because Ron Boccaccio and I he come to me and I said, let's do this because I agree with you. We did a video, and it was an open letter, and I called out a bunch of big names that are in the alt media, because they are the ones, a lot of them are the ones that we're looking up to for guidance based on their intelligence, their experience, their wisdom, their knowledge and stuff. And at that point in time, I had a big issue with what was going on, simply because of certain facts that were occurring that destroyed the narrative. Okay? And it's real simple. When they started claiming that certain facilities that were to handle these issues were becoming war zones, and then all of us good folks that had the little cameras were going around and finding crickets chirping at these places. That was a big thing. That was a really big thing. That should have made everybody step back and rethink things. It didn't. There were several individuals within our community that held on very strong to the narrative that this event was real in some form or fashion. Okay? So I raised that BS flag, and I said, no. And didn't go over so well. And so in today's discussion, Paul Craig Roberts does a wonderful job of alluding to the issues that I'm trying to present to you. One of the first things he notes is that people tend to want to hold on to the first piece of information that they hear as it is gospel. And that's why we're having issues with a lot of people still believing, regardless of the data that's coming out, saying that the issues with the fix for the event is now the cause of the next variation that's supposed to be happening. Okay? Good interview. I respect both the gentlemen for having the discussion. However, I want to, like I said, I have a lot of respect for these gentlemen, so I'm going to take off my sabot of woo, and I'm going to throw it in and bring it to Taj. I'm sabotage, woo-taj. The entire discussion that they had, simply because if you follow and can understand how to discern and follow a line of logic, the point I tried to make a year and a half ago is, once you get a certain piece of information, that negates everything thereafter, and those in the 16+1 community and a few other communities have brought up an old legal ruling from a long time ago, that's, and even Mr. Hunter said that fraud vitiates everything, right? So once you know there's fraud, everything else after it is essentially destroyed. So let's take that woo, and just a few simple facts pretty much ends all these details that are discussed. And how does that work? Okay, so way back a year and a half ago, I knew when the videos of these reception centers for the event were crickets chirping, I knew back then that something was not there in the first place. Okay? Since then, if you continue to listen to all and pick up all these other pieces of data that others like Mr. Hunter and Mr. High have not calculated in their logical line of thinking, at least not to the extent that would bring them to a good logical conclusion, is this. And I think Mr. Hunter has even made statement. So why he continues to discuss certain aspects, I'm not sure why that logic hasn't worked through in his mind. But the logic is this. There is no, or has not been, an isolation of the event causer. That thing that was supposed to be there was never isolated or mapped out in a DNA sequence or RNA sequence. At no point in time did one ever exist. Now there's court evidence that is now court situations that are occurring now, and we're going to get to that, that are pretty much showing that to be true. And so if there is never a tiny little thing that was bioengineered kind of thing, if that thing never existed in the first place, which a lot of data that we've all discussed and argued has kind of supported that knowledge, or that very credible theory that didn't exist because there's no evidence of it existing, and because the testing for that doesn't work, so you can't test for it, and on and on and on. We can go through a lot of those details and facts. If that's the case, then the only potential benefit that you have, and I'm not saying that the discussion that Paul Craig Roberts and Greg Hunter had today was for naught. I think there is some benefits to the discussion, and that is to provide evidence for intent as to who was pushing these things and the means and methods that they were attempting to use to push something that did not exist. And that was for nefarious purposes. But if this thing does not exist, then you can't argue, well, we should be doing the hydroxychloroquine, HCl or HCR or whatever, HCQ. So if you're going to sit here and argue that, oh, well, you need to have hydroxychloroquine, well, that whole discussion is mute because you don't need it. Now, Mr. Hunter does allude, to the aspects of what these, and this goes to the intent, because I know a lot of times Mr. High says, well, I don't want to determine intent, but if you're talking about criminal actions, you kind of want to build some case for intent. Because why would somebody do something, if there's not a cause or a reason or intent? It's necessary to dive into, criminality of the situation. So, once you understand that the reports that came out shortly, I mean, it wasn't long, I know it was May or June last year that we were getting the reports. Well, we still have, how can they make a thing if we don't even have it mapped out? And that was the big question, because all of a sudden, we had all these companies saying, hey, we're going to put it together really quickly and we're going to get emergency use authorization and all of those things. But how can you do that if you haven't even determined what it is that you're trying to prevent? So that's good logical thinking through this, is you can't. So that's mute. It's mute. It's all mute. And, some people can, get those points, and some people don't because they get hung up on things. So let me talk to you for just a second in how the CIA has used propaganda throughout the years. And this was shown very clearly in the 11th of September event about the information that was put out and how to increase belief systems of the event. And how does that work? And this is the whole point of the discussion I want to have with you this morning. And that's those who have stated it, and you go, I believe it was either Steve Quayle or, oh shucks, what's the name of that other CIA guy that Greg likes to interview? I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Anyway, the point is this. The CIA knows in their propaganda, and this is why you see the Mockingbird media present the information in the way it does. In order to create a belief system in the minds of the people you want to control, it is done by several things. One, as was 3 or 4 techniques here. Paul Craig Roberts alludes to the technique, a couple of the techniques, that you present the information and you present it often, and you just keep saying it, and you prevent alternatives to the narrative that we were talking about earlier. You prevent those, and you just keep pounding in the story you want. That's how you build your foundation. But this is the part, and this is the criticism that I'm hoping Mr. Hunter and maybe Mr. High, because like I said, I really respect these gentlemen and others, and Mike Maloney and the other folks that I've criticized on my previous video. My previous video about this is this. The CIA knows that if they can get you and even the alternative media or alternative perspectives to continue to argue about the details, this is critical. I want you to really kind of hold on to this. If you're going to sit here and argue about details of it, that continues to build the reality in the minds of all of us that thing still exists. For example, if Greg Hunter is going to continue, and he's done it a lot over this last year, to go in about, well, we got to cure hydroxychloroquine. Why would you even need that if the thing doesn't exist in the first place? Because if you sit here and argue about you need a cure, or whether or not the shot is good or not, the jab is good or not, and what the aspects of that are, good or bad, if you're arguing all about that, that still gives credence in the minds of people that, hey, there's a reason for it, so we need to keep talking about it because that means it exists. And what I'm suggesting is, once you start to have the little wootage of the piece of information that was never mapped out, there was never any finding of this thing that was supposed to exist, then everything after that is mute. Okay? This is the hard one. And then on top of that, to continue to bring these facts that support that there's nothing there. And our friend Joe, JSnip4, issues that I have with him, I still love him, and he does a really good job of getting all these data, facts, on from his perspective. That he just did that video, that proof that it never existed in the first place, that it was all a scam. He came to his conclusions a little differently than I did, because we're looking at data points differently, and we're all trying to sort this out. This is why I'll listen to all and follow none. It's because I need to get bits and pieces that I might not get, but he gets, or because of his belief system, or Bix Weir's belief system, or Greg Hunter's belief system. They're not looking at these other pieces. So, you know, it's very hard for us to get it all. And that's why we should slow down and reserve our judgments until we've gotten a lot of data. But when you have data coming in, like our friend Lynn Schmaltz sent out an email, got your email about this court case. I would not have seen this court case if it wasn't for her email. But the court case that went down in Canada, having to do with the refusal to do this and the forcing of that and this, actually going to court, and the individual who was, I guess was I don't know if they were the defendant or which side they were on. I don't know exactly which side it was. I think they were the prosecuting side, but either way, in the court case, it was pretty much said, bring me the proof that I need to do this. And the companies could not do such. There have been multiple articles about this over the last year, but this is in court. So, court case in Canada, where it's all coming to a head now. And there's a lot of court cases about a lot of these issues that are really starting to heat up. That's why I think we're getting ready to smack a fan blade pretty hard with a large chunk. A couple larger chunks of poo. So my friends, and I hope this goes over well, we need to follow the chains of logic. And the chains of logic are that simple. If there's a data point that comes out where the entire topic is nullified and vitiated because it's fraudulent in the first point, we've got to be careful about what we keep arguing about. If we keep arguing about these details, that, oh, well, there's this cure, or, there's this thing that's wrong. If you argue about the details, you're still giving credence to the existence of something that's not really there. And in which case, if I were the three-letter agency or the group of people who are implementing their agenda, I wouldn't care. Look, you're all arguing about my details. It means you believe in what I told you. It's not easy, once you understand this, to swallow it down and go, you know what? I just want to drive. I know my point, and I want to drive my point home. You know, it's possible to tweak your narrative to make it look like you were still right, even though you weren't. And there's an example, and I'm debating on whether to say this or not. Because, like I say, I don't want to tear the guys that I'm talking about. I have no desire to even. This is not meant to belittle them. I want to raise them up, because they are really truly trying to help us all. But when you have enough evidence that would say that this thing never really existed in the first place, all arguments have to be based on that logic. Paul Craig Roberts gives a bunch of the examples of how they were trying to make something else appear like it was the event. ergo motorcycle accidents that were relabeled, doctors getting paid 30-something thousand to put people on ventilators, you know, comorbidity issues on death certificates. We can go through all of these things, and even the data that has come out through the CDC, and those memes and information has been put out that 2020 had no more deaths than 2019, 2018, 2017. That information's come out. So if there were no other deaths, and then we know that the flu was cured completely by their own data, then we know that it was all a farce. So what I really hope is that for those of you who listen to this, understand that we have got to change the way we speak about these things and realize the logical, true science, logical argument is this: fraud does vitiate everything. But have we checked our own belief systems to understand that? Have we gone through and said, you know what, now that I know this, I can't make my other arguments, and I can't use that as a topic of discussion because it was vitiated by these facts. We got to know how we're dealing with that. Because for all of us who do come out and do these videos to try and share and help each other navigate through things, we do have the responsibility to make sure we get our stuff right. And that doesn't always happen. And that's why I say, my friends, we really need to listen to all and follow none. Just listen to all and come up with our own conclusions. We're going through some pretty rough times, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse because we're still at the very beginnings of the tear down. We're nowhere near the bottom of the tear down. We got a lot of stuff that needs to be torn down. And we all have our issues, and it's all internal. And all of this stuff is stuff that we all have to deal with on our own personal internal level. There are some sick people in this world. Some very, very sick people in this world. And they want to continue what they've been doing, and that's to have power over us because they're parasitical in mindset and parasitical in nature. There's only one way. There's only one solution. Is to stop paying attention and stop giving them any attention or power on any of the narratives or any of the subjects or any of that. And this is why on my homestead, I've been telling all those that are on my channel, focus on what you can do to navigate. Get your stuff in gear, be prepared, grow your own food, get out of the system, eliminate counterparty risk, all of those things. It's the only solution that we have, because none of us will stand together solidly enough in a large enough group, at least not yet, to be able to truly flush these psychopaths out. Unfortunately, a lot of that mental programming is in all of us. And we've dived into that. But so, to wrap this up, logic has to be looked at through and through. We have to apply things that we've learned to all aspects of other things. And I've discussed this in some of my other videos as well, is once you learn something, about how one thing works, you just don't leave it in that category. You got to kind of apply those kinds of learnings to other things that you've learned. And that means you got to step back and look at the big picture and not just get hung up on the details. It's part of the way the education system worked in our country was we were taught to memorize dates and names and shit. That's it. You know, what date did this happen? Who did it? You memorize the dates and the names. We were not taught to discern what was actually going on in this historical event and then apply those historical events in the nature of the way those things work to what's going on today. So my friends, I have yet to see any proof, and I'll state it the way it was done in the court case. Show me the proof. Show me, show me the proof that something actually existed. This thing actually existed. Because unless you can do that and do it clearly, arguing about any of the details is a waste of your time and my time. If it doesn't exist, why are we talking about it? Take your energy away from those things once you understand it and place it on what you do know you can do and the solution. That's pretty much what I got for you today. I know it's not an easy topic, especially when I've got to challenge people I do respect to reevaluate their logical thinking in the conversations they continue to have, because there's some really good minds out there, but we get tied up in the little pieces of information and we get too busy chasing them down and trying to argue that, oh, well, I found at this point and I found this point is right and yeah. But in the end, it doesn't matter. It really just doesn't matter whether hydroxychloroquine will cure things or not. What matters is the lie that started the whole conversation in the first place. That's the lie. It vitiates everything. All right, folks. As soon as we get enough sun on my solar panel, I'm going to get the welding done. Those of you who have stuck long enough to get through this rant of mine, I'll be putting up the video on my homesteading channel. Link will be in the description for the pole mount. Hopefully when I get this done, we can move on to some of my other projects. Y'all be blessed. You know that love is sent to all of you, and go create.